Perm Art Gallery is a proud owner of the largest museum collection of Church Orthodox sculpture. An amazing fusion of Christianity and paganism gave rise to the phenomenon of Perm wooden sculpture. Dimensional figures forbidden by church regulations at the time were created in the land of former pagans. Remoteness from St. Petersburg and the Holy Synod made it possible to preserve this totally non-canonical tradition. All sculptures from the Art Gallery's exposition were created during the period from the late 17th to the early 20th centuries. The works dated early 18th century, such as Paraskevo Pyatnitsa from the village of Nyrab, Nikolai Możajski from the village of Pokcha, Crucifixion from the town of Solikamsk, are closely connected to the traditions of ancient Russian carving. The craftsmen preferred to use pine and linden for their works. They worked the wood with an axe and a knife. Prior to painting, the wood was treated with levkas, a chalk primer. The painting was carried out with egg yolk tempera, often supplemented by gold and silver coating. The sculptures of the 18th century were influenced by European classicism and Baroque styles. Perm wooden sculpture represents several different topics, but the most frequent is the crucifixion of Christ. Dimensional crucifixes were only allowed to be placed in the temple on top of the iconostasis. The crucifixion was often accompanied by the Mother of Christ and St. John the Evangelist, who usually stand by the cross. The collection of the gallery has a composition of the crucifix with 10 people: the Mother of Christ, St. John the Evangelist, Mary Magdalene, Centurion Longinus, and 6 angels. There are flying and kneeling angels holding the scroll, as well as trumpeting angels, the prognosticators of the apocalypse. The craftsmen loved to carve angels because there was no strict canon regarding their images. This gave them the freedom of creativity and the ability to choose any model for sculpture they liked. The figures of the apostles, the companions of Christ, are expressive. St. Nicholas Możajski was very popular. The residents of Prikamye saw the saint as the protector and patron of new towns that appeared when the Russians were only settling in the region. The sculptures of St. Nicholas represent a warrior and a builder. He holds a sword and a temple in his hands. The sitting Savior, with a hand held close to his face, is probably one of the most recognizable sculptures in the Perm collection. Sometimes the Savior's figure was placed in specially designed prison cell. The prison cell from the village of Pashia is exhibited in the museum. This is a unique monument which is not represented in any other Russian museum. In the image of the sitting Savior, the biblical story of the Passion of Christ is represented by a jeer, torture, and wearing the crown of thorns. The figures of saints, especially St. Nicholas Możajski and Paraskevo Pyatnitsa, were popular in the north of the region. The faces of the wooden sculptures have ethnic features of the people of the region: the Tatars, the Bashkirs, the Komi-Permaks, and the Mansi. The wooden sculptures were found in more than 100 settlements. The collection of the Perm State Art Gallery contains more than 400 items. The process of collecting was not easy and was most active during the period before the war. In the 1920s, the art historians Serebrennikov and Suropyatov conducted 6 expeditions along the most difficult routes. The researchers examined and registered architectural monuments, looked for the long-abandoned wooden sculptures in the church cellars. Most of the sculptures were found in the region up the Kama River. Saving the masterpieces was not easy. The scientists had to transport the sculptures from the remote northern towns and villages with no railway connection. But this work was not in vain. It let us preserve the real jewel of our land, the collection of Perm wooden sculpture. It was exhibited in different countries of the world and in the leading museums of Russia. Hundreds of thousands of tourists come to Perm every year, and many of them come from far away, especially to see this collection of Perm wooden sculpture.